Hi-ho!
This program contains adult content. Parental discretion is advised.
This one violates every label on the book.
Get back to work, you slacker.
All calls are recorded.
Dr. Valentino to the ORP.
One, two, three, four.
Gather round, all you rug cutters, because we're going to show you what swing is all about.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of What's Your Work. This week, I talk with Chris Maier. Like that backing track? It's Swing Set by Jurassic 5. This week we talk about Penticton and what life is like in BC, Canada, being content at your job, picking up and starting over, saving lives on the job, and we missed each other crossing paths in Winnipeg. We also talk about podcasting with your wife and how all that works out. We also get into podcasting with Chris. So he is a co-host and host of a couple podcasts. First one being Our Liner Notes. It is a musical conversation podcast where the hosts and guests bring albums based upon a particular weekly theme with which they play selected tracks and attach stories and fun factoids to ignite conversation among the group. They can be reached at olinernotes@gmail.com or on Twitter at olinernotes. Also, Chris does another one with his wife called How Was Your Week, Honey? Each week they sit around their outdoor patio furniture and outdoor fire pit and talk about, catch up on the ongoings of each other's week and discuss various topics from entertainment, news, music, and sports. Contact them at HWYWHoney on Twitter or email them hwywhoney@gmail.com. So let's swing into the interview and please enjoy my conversation with Chris Maier. Thanks for your patience. I know the feed has been crazy lately, but should have up the other episodes back on iTunes and all the other feeds in the next few weeks or a month. If you want to be part of this show, feel free to contact me anytime on Twitter at What's Your Work or by email whatsyourwork@gmail.com.
The sound of the swing era. Kind of scratchy after all these years. If only it sounded like this.
So let's start off by what's your name and where are you from?
My name is Chris Maier, and I currently reside in Penticton, BC, Canada.
I don't know if many people know of our background, but I live in the current city that you used to live in.
You sure do. And I drove by your house apparently 2 weeks ago.
You posted pictures of that door that has since been changed, but yeah, that's
what is up with that? What's going on there?
I don't know. I haven't had a chance to go talk to that guy, but yeah, it's interesting for anybody that doesn't know or haven't seen. This guy had a mural, basically a paneled mural on his garage door that looked like two cars. One's a Ferrari and I think the other one was a Jag or something, but yeah, Mercedes or something.
It was ridiculous. Whatever it was. In all my years, I have never seen somebody have a wallpapered garage door like that. No. Especially not in that neighborhood.
No, and I thought it was So originally I thought it was like, okay, he's getting work done or something, and this was just a cover, and then the days turned into a week, and then a week turned into 2, and I'm like, this is kind of ugly. What's going on here? And then about, I guess, about a month ago, he tore it down. I was like, yes. And then he put a Winnipeg's Jet one up. So I don't know what's going on there, but it was a whole family affair. It one panel blew down, and the whole family was out putting it back up. And this is a long-standing guy. Like, he's one of the originals, I guess, from this street. So
Right.
I'm a myth. What's going on with that?
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I don't know. I spent my teen years growing up there in that neighborhood, and I'm pretty sure that would have been the number one targeted egging house if that had existed when we were kids.
Yeah, October's coming. It's going to be interesting to see what happens at Halloween. Yeah, so let's get into the next question, which I always kind of wonder, what made you move to BC?
Have you been here?
Yes, I have. Quite a bit.
And you've obviously spent time there, as it is where you live now.
Yeah.
It seems self-explanatory, but for those who don't know, Winnipeg, it's a lovely city. It has lovely people. There was, growing up in it wasn't bad. It's not overly difficult to get around. It's not a massive city, but it still has a lot of the big city amenities, concerts, shows, arts, all that kind of stuff. But it's fucking cold.
It is.
I mean, and not just cold. I mean, a lot of people say, well, Canada's always cold in the winter. Winnipeg is one of the of all the cities that are within an hour's drive of the Canada-America border. There is no city colder than Winnipeg, and it's forever. I mean, it is cold from mid-October all the way till sometimes almost the May long weekend.
So I will add to that. It was at when we got up for work this morning, it was 7:30. It was 3 degrees today.
Jeez. And you know what it was here? We hit 33.
Yeah, it's you feel the 6 months of summer and you feel the 6 months of winter. Now, I have to say, the last 2 winters have not been too bad here. I've got to defend it. The first 2 winters before that, when we first moved here, were brutal. We were really questioning what we were going to do in life at that point. But the last 2 winters have been not too bad. So I can't complain. I moved here for work, so I didn't really have much of a choice.
Right.
But yeah. No, I spent 2 years, 88 and 89 in Chilliwack, which is not too far away from Penticton.
No, not at all. A few hours, but
Yep.
In between us and Vancouver anyways.
Yep. And I've been back and forth to Penticton, so I know what the tumbleweed area is like there. It's very spaghetti westernish, we should say, I guess, right?
It can be. I mean, especially right now, we're in a 72 or 73 day drought. We haven't had any rainfall since sometime in June. And if you were here now, you would miss out on a lot of the beauty because we're actually completely enshrouded in forest fire smoke.
Yeah.
And there was not just 2 days ago, about a half hour up the road towards Kelowna, a 1,000-hectare forest fire that was starting to get out of control. And it's been a pretty scary summer this year. It's we've had the most forest fires this summer than I think we've had collectively since we've moved here.
That's not good. No.
So there's that.
Yeah.
You're not going to burn down anytime soon.
Well, no grass fires, no. Not here. Yeah, I've been watching it actually, and knowing where you are, I've been kind of going, there's a bunch of websites that you can actually go on and look at the forest fire predictions and where they are located right now. I'm like, well, that's getting pretty close to there.
It is. Actually, Mom and Dad live up just up the mountainside, and if we drive up to their place at night, if you look out, you can actually see the glow of the fire in the distance.
Yeah, that's spooky.
So
that's not good.
But apparently they have it under control, and I think we're going to be okay. So
good. That's good to hear. So other than the beauty, what was the determining factor for moving out there?
Well, see, I've looked over your questions, and I feel like there's the short answer and the long answer to almost every one, and so I'm not really sure. I'll try to make it the long short answer. How about that?
Somewhere in between, yeah.
Yeah, right. Okay, so there was a period in my life, speaking of work and jobs that I've had, where I was in air traffic control for a couple of years. And I got out of that and decided I had actually left university to go do that program. And so when that had ended, I had decided that I was going to go back to school and try and finish my degree. And my wife had just finished hers. And then while I was doing that, our daughter was born. And then we went through what ended up being our last winter there, and looking at each other and now having this newborn child and sort of being up in the air in our careers and where we're going to go. Cause my wife was on mat leave at that time from her job at the radio station. Yeah. And we knew we were about to start the next chapter of our lives. And going through that last winter, we realized that we just didn't want to be in Winnipeg anymore. Yeah. And an opportunity came up here, and I thought I could power through my courses, get the degree done, and then we could come out here and take advantage of the business opportunity that was out here. Yeah. And so that's what we did.
Nice. Air traffic control. Wow.
Yes, sir.
Now there's a stressful job. I think that's the number one stressful job, isn't it?
It is. And when they told me that when I got into it, I just kind of shrugged it off and I was like, how bad can it be? Like, how stressful really? Yeah. Well, I learned, and to be completely honest with you, it did break me. It got the better of me. There were, and there's a story I'll tell later in the show because it ties in with something else. Mm-hmm. But, I'll put it this way. I mean, there were days where I had to talk myself into going into the building, where I used to put my hand on the front door and have to and will myself into the job. It was pretty intense.
Yeah, no doubt. We'll move on a little bit until we get to the real questions, but I'll follow you on Twitter, Instagram, and listen to How Was Your Week, Honey podcast. And it looks like you and your family love the Penticton life. If you had to pick up right now and move again, would you? And if so, where would you go?
No, I can't imagine us. The only way that we would move again is if we were forced to. There was no work here. Our business failed. Something drastic would have to happen. Mm-hmm. So I can't see anything that would make us want to move. And if I had another place that I could pick to go, I have no idea what it would be. We really did leave where we were to come to the one place we wanted to. Yeah. Maybe not Penticton per se, but definitely the Okanagan Valley here in BC. This is where we wanted to be out of anywhere else.
Right. Well, that's good. I mean, if you got where you wanted to go, then you can't hope for any more. That's for sure. I mean, happiness.
Well, that's it. And see, we were talking, my wife and I, when we made the decision, and the final hurdle for us to get over was we were sitting there talking, and we were trying to sort of map out our life and where do we want to go? Where do we want to end up? And on one side, we could have stayed in Winnipeg. There was a job opportunity there, finishing out our programs. Both of us could have had decent careers right where we were with little to no effort. And we could have stayed there and then in 25 years retired and then tried to make a life out here. So we knew we were going to end up here one way or the other. Yeah. Or we could make a bit of a financial sacrifice and go now and just retire where we live. Right. And we thought that was the better plan.
Yeah, it's so that's exactly kind of where we are right now. So our contract is up for renewal. And we're on the fence right now that, okay, it's a little different for our situation because you got to think of it this way. Like we're always in the constant state of we're not really here. we're just kind of passing through all the time because, I mean, next month when a contract is renewed, if it's not renewed, then we have to pick up and go somewhere. So we've never really laid roots, we should say. So I've never really sat down and said, okay, let's start seeking out friends. Let's start, doing this. Why don't we think about buying a cabin or that whole nut,
Right,
we're kind of in a state of limbo all the time. And that's something that we talked about the other day was like, what are we really going to do? Like, am I going to just say I've had enough of this life of, running at 150% every day at work? Or do we just pack up and say, you know what, we liked, X area in Ontario. Why don't we just pack up and go back there and just, downgrade, downsize? She's a nurse, so she can work anywhere. You do your job, and I start freelancing because, we had this talk the other day. It's like, do we want to be here? Well, it's not the greatest city, but it's providing what we need right now for the children, right? Like, other than daycare.
Yeah, and it's not an easy decision.
No.
Right.
No, it's not. And I mean, other than daycare and the fact that everything is kind of, quote unquote cheap, it's not really cheap anymore because when we moved here, the year that we moved here, the PST went up at 1%, that it was down from our province of Ontario. So we were kind of putting money in the bank when we first got here, but then they put the PST went up. So, and then all the housing went up and everything else went up, of course. And so anyway, I mean, it's providing for us right now, and that's what we got to focus on. It's providing the better quality of life for our children than we saw in Toronto for them. So that's kind of why we're sticking around. But yeah, I know that feeling of, okay, we have to make a decision because it's getting there soon. But yeah, it's like that.
And it makes sense. And everything, how do I put it? The struggle you're talking about, I think every family goes through it. And the what do you want versus what do you need? Yeah. And it's not an easy decision to make. We were just lucky enough to be in a spot of flux in our lives that precipitated this.
Yeah.
Had we gone into our careers or gone back to the jobs that we had and sort of got ourselves entrenched, and all of a sudden our daughter and then our second came along and they were in school, it would make that decision that we made that much harder. I think we just kind of hit a sweet spot where if we were going to make that decision, it had to be at that moment.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how it comes usually, right? Like it's everything kind of just lines up right and it happens.
That's right. And remember, nothing is permanent. Mm-hmm. So even if you decide to stay this year, there's always next year or next month or in 5 years. You're never stuck.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, right? Like a lot of people feel that way, that they're like, I'm stuck in my job or I'm stuck in doing this and how do I get out? But it's you just gotta make a decision one day and go, you know what? I'm going to make this decision and put the big boy pants on and let's do it.
That's right. That's right. So thank God my wife wears the big boy pants.
Oh, you too, eh? Yeah. That's a common theme.
Yeah.
How was your week, honey? Podcast.
Yes.
So where did that all come about? Whose idea was it?
Well, it was all mine, of course. No, I think what happened, and I was trying to remember this, but pretty much what happened is I got into podcasting, and I'd been doing it for a while, and I would say within the first 5 to 6 months, or even in the first 5 to 6 months, Kristen could see that I was really, taking to it. Like this, it was a thing. It wasn't like I'm going to go check this out and then, I'm done with that.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if it was her idea or mine, but I know we just talked back and forth and bandied about the idea of doing one together. Like, hey, maybe we could do that. Well, how would we do it? And we talked about it for almost a year before actually setting the wheels in motion. Mm-hmm. We wanted to wait till the time was right, and then we didn't really know what we wanted to do. And I had learned from our liner notes, which we might get into later, that just jumping headfirst into a podcast without really hashing it out first or knowing where you're going with it might pose some difficulties down the road. So once we had finally figured out what we wanted to do and how we wanted to do it, then we just went ahead and started recording.
Yeah.
But the name was her idea.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
When we first started talking about it, we were trying to go with a sort of a he said, she said theme.
Okay.
And I said, because she's Kristen and I'm Chris, we were going to do like a Chris said. That was our original title.
Yeah.
And then she went away for a couple weeks because her sister had a baby.
Mm.
And then when she was out there, she would text me and say, well, how was your week, honey? And then she said, you know what? That's the name of the show.
There you go.
And she came up with the tagline of two middle-aged people who used to be cool but now drive a minivan.
Yeah, that's great.
That's who we are.
Yeah. It happens a lot. It's happened to everybody, I think.
Minivan. It's the best thing we ever did.
Yeah, you can tote a lot of stuff around in a minivan, that's for sure.
Oh, it's great. Even when the kids are gone, I think I'll still drive one.
Really?
Yeah, I love it. It's the best vehicle I've ever owned. It does everything. And yeah, if once you get over the hump of I drive a minivan, that's the only negative side to it. After that, I love the thing.
Yeah, when you shed that stereotype, yeah, you're doing okay. Sounds like you guys got a good relationship on the cast. Does anything ever get heated before airing or after?
You're married, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I asked.
I'm sure it has. I think there's been some moments, even during recording, where we got a little bit heated, but I think that also comes through. I don't cut a lot out of the edit. I more shore it up for ums and ahs and weird microphone bumps and things like that.
Yeah.
I mean, sure things get heated, but I mean, things get heated between couples all the time, but nothing crazy. We have, and maybe everybody will say this, but we have a good relationship. Mm-hmm. And even when we have issues, I mean, we've been together almost 17 years. We've been married for 7, but I met Kristen when she was 21.
Yeah.
And so we know each other. And when it comes to fights and stuff like that, we can see them coming, and we know how to deal with each other. And we've seen each other at our worst. We've seen each other at our best.
Yeah.
And it's, nothing out of the ordinary. That's for sure.
Yeah. So you've learned what trigger points not to pull.
Yeah, exactly that. And she knows my opinions on things, and I know hers. Like I know when is a good time to try and convince her of my side, or vice versa, right?
Yeah.
We just know each other really well. So
awesome. Yeah, it does come through on the show. And
nice.
Our liner notes. Let's talk a bit about that one. What was the origin of that show? Like, how did that all come about?
Okay, so I think we're going to get into podcasting a little later as far as the passion side of things. So I'm gonna start from the middle, and the actual idea for the format of the show is, once I had decided, I knew I wanted to get into podcasting, and I decided I'm doing a show. Mm-hmm. And so when you're trying to figure out what show you want to do, it's probably, I thought anyways, a lot like write about what you know. So I figured I got a podcast about what I know. Mm-hmm. And so at first I wanted to start a hockey podcast. And then I started looking around, and there's a ton of them. Yeah. And to be fair, I do know a fair amount about hockey, but I wouldn't say I'm a hockey nerd. I don't know everything about every team, but I'm a massive Edmonton Oilers fan. Mm-hmm. So I know everything about that team. And I thought, well, starting just an Edmonton Oilers podcast is a little bit niche. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I thought, well, I'm really stuck in a hole there. So that's probably not the best idea. So I went to the next thing that I felt I knew something about, and that was music. And the other thing too is, back to moving out here, it's kind of a retirement resort town where I live. Yep. And I haven't met a ton of people my age, thereabouts, with similar interests and similar ideas. So even having music conversations was something that was missing from my life. So the idea of having a podcast and being able to seek out people who I could talk music with, I thought that was great. And then the other side with the actual show format, with it being an album-based show, at least that's where it started, I just had noticed in my own seekings of music and listening to other music podcasts and just the music business in general, that the album was really starting to fade. The album as a thing, as a whole piece of content where artists put their material, it just wasn't important to people anymore, because you didn't need to buy an album anymore. You can listen to any one song. You can listen to 5 seconds of a song if you want to.
Yep.
So I thought, well, wouldn't it be great to sit down and talk about albums and share stories based on that? And I love that whole idea. So I knew then that I wanted to do an album-based show. Mm-hmm. See, and then there's a third part to that. But I've lost. Oh, the last thing, sorry. The third reason why I wanted to do it was, again, I found as I got older and was a little more isolated, I was having a hard time finding new music or getting into things on my own. And I thought, well, if I start a podcast where other people can bring their music, now I'm going to get introduced to stuff that I may or may not like it, but I'm going to hear new stuff, or at least new to me. Yep. And now I'll have this whole new avenue to discover music. And then I thought, on top of not just the guests, then any show interaction with other people, somebody might say, hey, I heard your show. I like this. Have you checked out that?
Right. Yeah.
And so that was kind of, that's where it started from.
Nice. So just quickly before we go on to and get into the meat and potatoes of it, just wanted to let my listeners know that my first podcast airtime was on our Liner Notes show.
I didn't know that.
Yes, it was episode 44.
Yeah, I remember you being on. We had a great time. You brought Iron Maiden, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that was a good show. I didn't know that was your first podcast. You were like a pro.
Oh, really? Come on.
No, seriously. It went really well, I thought.
I was actually, I don't know if you've ever called into like a radio show, or say like a newsroom for a news story or something, but it is a different type of feeling where you're like put on the spot and you're like, I feel really nervous now. And I did.
Well, I know that feeling. You should listen to the first 15 to 20 episodes of our Liner Notes.
I have
that.
But yeah, it was. It was brand new for me. I've been listening to a lot of podcasts over the years, but to actually start interacting on some level over the microphone and somebody live, it was new, and I'm sure I had a lot of mush mouth into that one. I remember having a lot of times where I was like, where am I in my notes here? Like, where was I again? But yeah, no, that was great. And I don't know if you knew, but I was 44 at that year, so it was kind of funny that was my episode and I was 44 at the time. So yeah.
Very cool.
And that was
I'm glad we popped your cherry.
Yeah, it was. And that was, if you want to believe it, was October 2016. So it was almost a year ago.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Where does the time go?
I know. That's what I was looking at. I went back and I looked at that episode and I was like, wait a second. That was a year ago almost? Holy cow.
Well, and look at you now. You're building a studio. You got your own show.
Yeah. A year is quite the time. That's for sure. But yeah, I just want to thank you and Paul for having me on and cracking the seal and inspiring me to start my own show and get back and feeling inspired about something. I mean, I've done recording over the years for band stuff, but to get something where I don't have to rely on a bunch of people, well, other than guests, but to rely on a bunch of people to get together and okay, let's work on something and record it and all that, just to sit down with a microphone and all that. I'm eternally grateful for you guys having me and starting that whole process.
Wow. Well, you're certainly welcome. But this is all you, man. This, I'm glad we had you on, and I'm glad that it. You know what I think it was is you came on the show and you saw us two yahoos doing it. You're like, I could do this.
No, I don't think it was that at all. I think I got bitten by the bug, I think is what it was. It was like,
it happens. Yeah. I was a guest. Actually, my co-host on our Liner Notes, Paul, who's also my uncle. I popped my pod cherry on his and his son's podcast, Diamond Mines, which is now defunct. I think it's still out there, but they haven't recorded in a long, long time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember that feeling. I remember having a whole lot of bourbon with me. And I was just talking to family members.
I think I had whiskey at that time on that day as well. So yeah.
Nice.
So we've kind of come full circle, and now I'm interviewing you. And
I like this. I got no prep. I got no notes. I'm just winging it.
Yeah. It's a different feeling, isn't it?
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah. So one of the things that I wanted to ask is, talking about Dave, I know Paul's a different situation, but in talking about Dave, and there's been a couple other, people in the community that they've either kind of given up or taken a hiatus. We'll put that one on quote unquote hiatus, because I know that the community kind of doesn't like that.
Shh, don't say that word.
Yeah, the shush word.
The word that shall not be spoken.
Yeah. What keeps you going and up for the task lately?
I'm a sad and lonely man, Chad. And without this podcasting, I'd have nobody to talk to. What keeps me going? Well, I just like it. I mean, it's just a ton of fun, and I would most certainly miss these conversations. Like this moment right now with you and I chatting back and forth. I mean,
yeah.
A year ago, before you came on the show, you and I didn't know each other from dirt. And now we have an online relationship. We've bandied about ideas of shows back and forth with each other.
Yeah.
We've talked music. So I've created a place for myself where I can cultivate all these relationships and meet people and have conversations that I never could before.
Yeah.
So whether or not the shows themselves stay going, I can't see myself getting away from podcasts, because it's just become such a big part of my life and my day to day. I mean, I probably work on the podcasts every day. Even if it's for 5 to 10 minutes, there's a little bit of editing, or I jot down some ideas, or I'm on Twitter, conversing with somebody. That'd be awful hard for me to give up. Yeah,
it becomes ingrained in you. Like, I don't know. I'm seeing the same way. I'm taking it back from it a little bit more. Like, I'm not doing a weekly. I'm doing a monthly right now. And there's two reasons for that. First reason is my work is very unpredictable, as you can see when we were trying to set up this whole thing. Right. Is that I might be on call, or I might have to jump in a truck and go to, I don't know if you remember this place, but Gretna down by the border, almost in North Dakota. Yep. So, those times come up, and so that's the first reason. And then the second reason, currently, because I didn't really know which way I wanted to go with this, is that I was using a server service where it resets every month. So I only get a certain amount of bandwidth per month, right? So I was kind of like, well, let's just do it once per month, and that kind of satisfies both things that, are in question for me right now. So, but next month, or actually this month, this is September, right? So this month my service with that company is up, so I'm going to flip over to Libsyn. And
nice, yeah.
And so they go by what do they do?
Price points, isn't it?
Right.
I'm on Libsyn. That's what I use.
Yeah, so I mean, going around the community, pretty much everybody is on Libsyn. So yeah, so that's going to change next week. So yeah, I'm going to probably do maybe 2 a month until we start slowing down. And I've interviewed everybody in the podcasting community in our closely knit one, and then once I start reaching out, we'll see where we are.
Perfect.
But, yeah. So let's.
Yeah. Oh, I just wanted to say one last thing. Sorry, because I was sort of saying giving up podcasting on the Our Liner Notes side of things, but on the How Was Your Week, Honey podcast that I do with my wife, I can't picture giving that up, because it's like I get a date night with my wife once a week.
Yeah.
Like you can say, well, honey, you and I should go out, once a week and have a night but life happens or work happens, and I don't feel like going out tonight, or I'm tired. But because we sort of have a scheduled podcast, we don't always have to do it that night. But at least once a week, we sit down for a couple hours and hang out. And so I can't see wanting to give that up either.
Yeah, no, that's good. And for both of you to be in it, that's probably rare and good. I mean, we have Annalise and Neil doing their podcasts, Dark Angels and Pretty Freaks, but I mean, other than that, I don't see too many of them around that are, happy to sit down with each other for a couple hours and record something.
Yeah, we're freaks.
But it's good. You got something together. I mean, my wife does not, well, I shouldn't say she doesn't get it. She gets it, but she's not into podcasting at all. Like,
Yeah, just go downstairs.
well,
I'll see you later.
yeah, exactly. Turns on her Sirius and on her way to work, and that's pretty much just the extent of anything that goes. But yeah, we do not.
Well, if you can convince her, you should get her on here.
Well, I interviewed her for, it was supposed to be episode 2, and then I made the mistake of letting her hear it. And that was like, no, you're not, no, that's staying in the bag. Nope. So my wife is originally from the Philippines, and she has a little bit of a thick accent. It's really good for really good English. She's been here a lot of years. She's been here like 30 years, but she still has a little bit of thick accent. I think that's why she didn't want to be heard. So.
Oh, I totally understand.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, she just didn't like the way that I thought it was a great interview personally, but she just didn't,
that was your mistake. You never should have let her hear it.
Exactly. I should have just published it and went, there you go. Too late. It's out there.
Actually, yeah, you should have put it out and then just shown her the positive Twitter review she would have gotten.
Yeah, exactly. Next time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's get into the work questions. Let's find out what you do, because I have no idea, and I'm really interested to hear what's going on with this. So,
all right, so it's not a fascinating job, but so to go back to us moving out here, my wife's father had a window cleaning business out here, and when we came to visit, when we were trying to figure out what we were going to do or what we could move out here for, it ended up coming up that he was trying to expand it, but he only had himself. And after being here for a bit and seeing what he was doing and where he was at, I could see right away that there was some huge potential to grow it. There was just all these different avenues that he hadn't tapped yet. And I thought, if you let me in here, if we partner up, we could really grow this thing. And so that's what we did. So myself and my father-in-law, we own, and we've expanded it now. It started as just a window cleaning business, but now it's a window cleaning, pressure washing, ultrasonic blind cleaning, home maintenance business that we do here in the Valley.
Very cool.
Yeah. It's a lot different from controlling aircraft.
No doubt. No doubt. And you guys pick your own hours. You just line up your clients pretty much, and away you go, right?
Well, that was it. So when we were again deciding to come out here, my wife had said, "What do you want to do?" That the air traffic control didn't work. You don't want an office job. You said you don't want to just sit at a desk all day. So what do you want to do? And I said, well, I'm pretty sure I want to be my own boss. I think whatever I do, I want the control. I want the power. I want to make the decisions and reap the benefits of those. And we first came out, we were actually looking at a children's clothing store, believe it or not, that we were going to buy.
Yeah.
And we were pretty close, I'd say. We had gone in, we'd come down, we visited, we saw the books, and we thought, well, we could make a go of this. Because one thing you realize when you have kids, or at least when we did, what a racket the baby and kids market is.
Absolutely.
I mean, if you ever go to a baby shower and see all the crap that people get for their kids that didn't even exist, say 20 years ago, it's incredible. And I said, we need to get into that because there's money. So anyways, we went and looked at the store that was selling that stuff and a few other items, and it looked pretty good until we got into further discussions and realized that she had thousands upon thousands in credit debt that she wanted us to cover off.
Oh.
in order to buy it, and so we backed out.
Yeah, no.
And that business is no longer here. So
Yeah, no, there's a reason for that, right?
exactly. But yeah, that's what I do.
Cool. Do you have a best day story? Like, is there anything you got home and you went, you know what, that was a great day?
I don't know if I'd call it my best day story, but it's my best story I have from work. And actually, it's funny. What made me think of the story was I was at this client's house the other day when I was listening to your show. You had Uncle Jay from Wicked Theory on.
Yeah.
And I was listening to the episode, and I thought, oh, well, this just makes the perfect story for that, I think. So anyways, it was a couple of years ago, and we were at this client's house, and I have employees, and they're working away, and I usually chat with the homeowners and that and make nice.
Yeah.
And so myself and the gentleman are standing outside, and we're shooting the shit about something. Can't remember what. It's not important.
Yeah.
And the windows open upstairs, and from upstairs we hear this ka-thump. And we continue talking for a second, but neither of us can really shake the feeling that was, a very odd sound. And so he finally stops and says, hold on a sec. And so he calls for his wife through the window. He gets no answer. And he's like, okay, I'll be right back. So he runs inside, and then not 30 seconds later, he sticks his head out the window and says, my wife's collapsed. I don't know what to do. And so myself and this other fella, really, really great kid that was working for us, Spencer, we come into the to the kitchen, and there she had basically fallen off her stool and was just, flat out on her back. And her husband's calling 911. And I said, we need to check if she's breathing. So we go and check. We're like, she's not. Now, I've taken CPR before, but I'm not certified. But Spencer is. And it's one of those things where you really need that certification if you want to take the chance. It sounds stupid, I know, but it's how it is.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of liability if you don't. That's for sure.
Exactly. So, he says, I can do this. And I said, okay, we need to. Are you okay with this? And, we just kind of looked at each other, and we knew what to do. So I grabbed the, there's the face mask breather from the first aid kit that we carry with us. And him and I went to town, gave her CPR. We got her breathing again. The paramedics took a bit to show up because we were a little bit outside of town. And, they told us that if we hadn't done that she wouldn't have been there. And so that day that I was listening to your show, I was talking about and thinking of this question, she actually came out, and it's the first time I'd seen her face to face since that incident. And she just, all those nice things that people say in that situation, she thanked me and said that she wouldn't be here if it wasn't for us. And she's doing really, really well. She's got a pacemaker now. She has no significant health issues since. So it all turned out very well. So I'd say that's my best day story.
No doubt. That's awesome. That's great. Would you say that's your craziest work story as well? Or if anything nutty would happen?
Yeah, my day-to-day is pretty mundane. I would say I do know that there was one time we were working at another, like at a condo unit. And I was up a ladder, and then all of a sudden I hear sirens. And as I look over my shoulder, 3 unmarked police cars come out of nowhere and surround this car by slamming on the brakes and boxing them in, and they come flying out with guns drawn like in the movies, and they haul this guy out of his car, and they get down on the ground. I was like, wow. So, that happened. That was kind of cool.
Yeah, you don't get to see that every day.
No, I think that's the first time I'd ever seen that. Yeah.
That reminds me of when you're talking about cops surrounding a guy. When I was living in Toronto, I was watching the show there. They have like 24-hour news. It's called CP24. And I just happened to be watching it one day and looking for the weather. And I'm watching this thing go down with these cops surrounding this high-rise building. And I suddenly realized that it was across the street. So I opened the blinds and I'm watching this whole thing unfold on TV and on in real life. And it was just crazy. But yeah, it's when you see that happening, it's almost surreal that it's like, whoa, wait a second, this is happening.
Well, yeah, I felt like I was watching it on TV.
Yeah.
It was just like that.
Yeah. Do you have a well, I guess we know the answer to this question, but do you have a hobby or a favorite thing that you do at the end of the day just to shed that work life?
Yeah, we're doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No yoga or treadmill or...
I'm terribly out of shape. My wife's really into yoga. She keeps trying to get me to do it with her. And I have a couple times. And I used to be a big workout guy. Something I did quite regularly, but I've done it in the wrong order. I should have been lazier when I was younger and got more into working out as I got older. But I find that I don't have a ton of time. And then when I do have that time, I'm either with my kids, which are probably my best way to shed the work day, is just hang out with my family. But, once they're in bed and it's just me, this is it right now.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. Do you socialize with your coworkers? Like, what do you talk about? Do you get into movies?
Owners
or
don't
music?
get coffee breaks, Chad.
Oh, that's... Yeah, I know how that goes. I know exactly how that goes.
No, I mean, most of the guys that work for us are pretty good guys.
Yeah.
And, we're all fairly friendly and we all get along. So, and we're always together. There's no separation between myself or Ron, my father-in-law, and the staff. We, it's very together. It's a very cohesive unit. And, there are a couple friends that I have now that were some of our first employees. I've gotten older now and our employees seem to be getting younger. So there's not that kind of relationship. But, there's a couple guys that are my friends now, like Norm, who's been on our liner notes a couple times.
Mm-hmm.
He was actually our first employee. And, we formed a friendship through that. But
cool.
Yeah.
Do you hang out with, probably you probably hang out with your father-in-law, but do you hang out with any of the other coworkers? Like,
no, not so much anymore. Like I'm 42 now, and much of our staff is in their early 20s. So there's a fair bit of life experience distance. And I mean, to be honest, I don't really hang out with a lot of people.
Yeah.
Here, again, in my free time, if I'm doing anything, I'm doing stuff with my family.
Right. Yeah.
We go out, and Kristen and I, when we go out, we'll go out as a couple often. And so we have friends that we've met either through the kids' school or, other people just around town. Yeah. And so we'll go out together with them and do couples things. But just on my own, I don't go out that much. I don't get out much.
Yeah. Same here. Yeah. If you could change one thing about your current work, is there anything, or is it kind of where you want it to be?
Well, you could always make more.
Well, of course.
But I think, this goes back to the moving talk. Mm-hmm. If you really want to move and do something, you move. So same thing with this job as a career. If there's anything I don't like about it, I just change it.
Yep. Or
work towards to make it what I want it to be. So I can't see any one thing right now that I could point to.
That's good. Yeah. So I know this one doesn't really apply, but is this the job or career that you kind of wanted in life, or is it just a passing through thing? I know from what we're talking about now is self-employment was kind of, the goal after, you realize that you didn't want to be an air traffic controller. But is this kind of where you saw yourself being?
Not in a million years.
No,
I had no idea this was. I mean, if you'd asked me when I was 10 what I was going to be a lawyer. If you asked me when I was 15 what I was going to be a doctor. And then when I was 20, I was going to be a rock star. And then when I was 25, I was going to be a doctor again.
Yeah.
So, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So no, this is doing what I do as far as like the labor side of things, which is starting to wean now. As like any good business, you have to do the work yourself to start. You have to know your business, and you do that. But as you grow and, as you get more efficient with it, then you start to let other people do the work, you delegate. And now you start to get more into the business and the administration side of things as you grow. And so that's where my future lies anyway. So that's where I see myself from now.
Nice.
Is more on that side of things.
Yeah. do you see yourself taking over the job? Like your father-in-law is going to eventually kind of want to retire, I guess, and start seeing the world. Is he looking to you as a successor for this job? Or?
Oh, absolutely. So
Nice.
we actually already have a plan in place, and we've talked about it for a while now. Just he will start to wind down, and eventually, he'll do exactly that. He'll travel. I think that at least for the next few years, he's going to be heavily involved, and then I don't think he's just going to cut and go as much as he'll sort of cut down his hours.
Yeah.
He'll take longer vacations, more office work, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
As the time goes on. But, there's no hard set date, but that is the plan.
Yeah. Any entrepreneur is not, they don't have like an end date saying, yep, this is the day I quit.
Exactly.
It'll never happen.
And he's had it first, right? It's pretty hard to leave something you helped create.
Exactly. It's his baby, right?
Yeah, exactly that.
So I have to cut for 2 seconds. I can smell the slow cooker upstairs.
Okay.
So give me about a minute. I'll be right back.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
We'll be back after these messages. And now back to our show.
All right, let's dive back into it. So, passion side questions. Do you consider the podcasting your passion, or is there something else you pour your time into?
Right now, definitely podcasting is my passion. It is what I spend most of, if not all, my free time doing. Yeah. But I also enjoy music, as obviously by the podcast that I do. So I do delve into that as well.
Right. How did you start in podcasting? Like, where did you get started? Who started it? Like, I guess the question, like, I kind of know how you started into it by our conversation, but was there somebody that kind of pushed you into it, or how did it all come about?
So, actually, I think they just came back last night, but it's all Jay and Dan's fault. I was watching Sports Center or some TSM broadcast.
Yeah.
And James Duthie was on hosting, his panel or whatever it is he does over there at TSN. And there was this little down moment in between the next segments, and Duthie asked the guys if they had been on Jay and Dan's podcast yet.
Uh-oh.
That it was complete lunacy and out of control. And and I loved watching them at that time, and I thought, podcast? What the fuck's a podcast?
Yeah.
And so, went over to the old computer machine and, Googled it up and checked it out. And so I was just listening to their podcast for, I don't know, months.
Yeah.
And then I started to clue in, because I'm not a very bright man. It takes me a while to get things. I thought, well, if they have a podcast, I bet you other people have podcasts. And so I started digging around, and that's when I found Kevin Smith.
Oh.
And so I started listening to Kevin Smith's podcast. Then one day I'm scrolling through Facebook, and I see this, photoshopped picture of my cousin. And I think, well, Diamond Dave, what's all this about? And it says that he was appearing on some podcast and this and that. And so I clicked on it, and to my amazement, I'm like, wow, this is pretty good. The recording quality amazed me, because I can remember doing some recording when I was in bands, back when I was in my early 20s, and recording back in those days was like a Tascam 4-track, that was high end, but more often than not, it was like a 2-button recorder underneath a blanket in the corner.
Yep.
So
I've done all that too. I know exactly what you're talking about.
So that's what I was expecting. And so I hear this, professional quality conversation coming back. And so I started listening to one of Dave's shows just through Facebook posts. I actually hadn't found the feed yet. Then not even a couple weeks later, Dave's dad, my uncle, comes out for a visit, and I start asking him about Dave, and he's like, well, actually, Dave and I started a podcast.
Yeah.
Really? It's like, yeah, it's called Diamond Minds. We just started. They were only like 6-7 episodes in.
Yeah.
So I started following their feed. And one thing that I noticed had happened while I was listening to podcasts was I started talking to myself. The host of whatever show would be in on some topic that at least I felt like I knew something about.
Yeah.
And if you walked by me with my headphones on, I'm having this conversation with myself because I'm talking back to the people who can't hear me inside my head.
Yeah.
And I just knew that I loved the format. It was just such a great change. And that I've discovered that you could start to find stuff about anything you were interested in.
Mm-hmm.
And then the final push over the edge was I was in Calgary visiting my aunts, and they're also Dave's aunts. And so we met up there and we were chatting, and he said, do it. You should just do it. And he invited me onto Diamond Mines. So I tried that for the first time. And it was on their show, my first appearance on the Diamond Mines show, where I threw out the idea of our liner notes, what I was thinking and what I might do. And my Uncle Paul, being there on the other end, said, I'll start that with you.
Nice.
And without him, because he knew all the, he knew about Libsyn and he knew about mixers and the U control, which is a very vital piece of equipment that we use for the show. And, all that stuff. And so without him, I probably would have just sat there thinking about it forever.
Yeah.
He actually served up on a plate. This is how you do it. And I'll do it with you.
Nice.
And so away we went.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Have you had a high point yet in your podcasting quote unquote career yet, or are you still getting there?
Oh, there's lots of high points. The people I've met, the people that have been kind enough to be my guest and share their stories, always a high point. For me personally, in doing it, wasn't too long ago that I went and attempted a solo episode. And I did a little Chris Cornell tribute after his passing.
Yeah, that was great.
And I got some pretty positive response to that, which was more than I expected. And that was really cool. But one of the ones that I got, the podcasting community itself is incredibly supportive. And so I got a lot of positive feedback from those people. But it's all genuine, but it's not overly surprising because we all kind of help each other out. But I got a private message from someone associated with Rolling Stone magazine who said that they had heard it and they had liked it. And I think that was probably definitely one of the highlights or one of the nicest things that I've come across since doing this.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I remember that episode. It was timely and it was well put together. I enjoyed it quite a bit.
Well, thanks.
Have you ever thought, well, you know what? I'm going to change these two questions because this one is actually better to what you were just talking about. So have you ever thought about taking it to the next step and doing your passion full time, like in, some sort of work in radio or TV?
I unfortunately don't have the voice for radio.
Oh,
I'm fine with my voice. I'm not going to sit here and go, I hate the way I sound. But I can hear how I speak. And even in my edits, the amount of I knows and ums and my voice goes really high and nasally at points. It's very odd. But yeah, no, I have no delusions of grandeur. I cannot see a career in radio. However, if someone were to walk into this room right now and say, I'm going to pay you dollar amount X and you can do this every day, damn Skippy, that's exactly what I would do.
I think you're being overly critical on your voice. From the all the episodes that I've been listening to over the last 2 years, I think you're being overly critical. Everybody does the ums and ahs.
Yeah, fair enough. But there's crutches, those verbal crutches you have, and like, damn it, you don't even know you're doing them till you listen back. You can even tell yourself, I'm going to stop saying this word or this phrase, and it still happens.
Yeah, no, it does. I have the same problem when I go back and through the edits. Like, why do I say that all the time? Let's cut that one out.
Or why do I sound like a dick there?
Yeah, exactly. Or boy, I'm laying it on thick.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. Yeah. Now I've got my I want to be a broadcaster voice on. How are you doing tonight?
Yes.
Exactly. But how's this for a voice comment? I can remember being in air traffic control and everything you do is all verbal over the radio, right?
Yeah.
And you get coached on that. Like there's a radio etiquette, right? And radio courses you take. And I remember one of my instructors saying, "Hey, your voice should be good for the airwaves. It's high and it pierces right through."
Should I be impressed or insulted?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Have you ever thought of giving this up, and why?
I did think of giving up our liner notes, believe it or not. Paul and I were having a hard time connecting. Paul, my co-host, and he was traveling. We also have a time difference issue, the same time difference that you and I are experiencing right here. We're 2 hours apart.
Yep.
And he's an early riser, so he's up at like 5 o'clock in the morning to start his day. So he's normally in bed by 9:10. Well, that's 7 o'clock my time, and that's about when I can just get started.
Right.
And so there was, I would say, I don't know, I'd have to go back in the feed and check, but I bet there was a 3.5 month period where there was no material coming out. We had no content at all.
Yep.
And we tried a couple times and it was just too sparse. And I felt like if we're going to do this, it has to be, somewhat consistent. And so I was struggling with what to do. And then the other thing is, I alluded to earlier about knowing what show you want to do.
Yeah.
I jumped into the Our Liner Notes format without really fully hashing it out. Paul and I discussed it and we agreed to terms on how we were going to do it. But because I had no experience, I didn't really understand the logistics and then sort of being nailed down to the format forever.
Yeah.
And I started to feel like it was getting tired in that I'm not that interesting a guy and I've only got so many stories. And so bringing an album every week and trying to relate it back to something personal all the time, I was just going to run out. And then, A, nobody wants to hear me tell the same stories over and over, or B, have nothing to say.
All right.
So that's when I sat down and said, okay, well, what am I going to do? Because I knew that I really didn't want to give it up.
Mm-hmm.
But, I need to do something. And that's when the format changes came about.
Yeah.
I think it's been 3 or 4 months, maybe more. But I thought, and again, I credit my wife because she came up with the name for that show too.
Nice.
That because it's called Our Liner Notes, that it's really kind of an all-encompassing title. And so it allowed me the freedom to do a format change, but still make it about music.
Right.
And I didn't have to change the show or start something new.
Smart. Yeah. No, the new format and the mixtape, thoroughly enjoying it. It's coming along very nicely.
Oh, well, great. I'm glad. I'm enjoying it. I've now am starting to learn what it means to be an interviewer.
Yeah.
And how difficult a job. I thought I could host a David Letterman show or something like that, no problem.
Yeah.
But now actually sitting across from somebody and doing like what you're doing now,
yeah,
it's fucking hard.
It is.
Yeah.
Keeping a thought process going and keeping the flow going and keeping something interesting is actually harder than what you think by just watching somebody on, like you say, David Letterman or whoever. You watch it and you kind of you go through the motions and the questions in your head as well, and you're like, oh, how hard can it be? Like, Howard Stern has been doing it for 40 years. How hard can it be? And then when you actually start sitting down and, going through your plot points and trying to figure it out and trying to keep everything flowing, it's incredibly hard.
Well, there's a real push and pull to it. And no matter what questions you have outlined, it's dynamic. The conversation's going to go where it's going to go.
Mm-hmm.
You as the interviewer can't preset the answers. You've only got the questions. And so you have to play interviewer and audience kind of at the same time. I've only recorded 3 mixtape episodes so far.
Mm-hmm.
And in listening back to all of them, I slap myself in the forehead at moments and go, how did you miss the opportunity to ask this question? Because now sitting back here just listening as the listener, that person, he or she, said something that I want to know more about, and you completely blew that opportunity.
Then it's heard on your side, because I don't think I've picked up on many of those. But you can put out subsequents.
This is true. My producer, friend to both of us, the Agent Palmer, he's great for that. And one of the great ideas that he had was, you can always have people back. The way you've set the show up,
Yep.
There are so many different answers to any of those questions. It will allow itself to have return guests.
Yep. I'll tell you, the last one with Jen was, I've got to tell you, of all the episodes that I've listened to, I think hers was, I won't say the best, but I think it was, I can hear you coming into your own, I should say, with the interview. It was a fantastic interview. The variety of the music was bar none. I mean, you took us from, Spanish music to punk. It was just a plethora of emotions in there as well, because we got on the dark side a little bit, then we got light. I mean, it was, I think it was one of the better that I've heard from you guys at all. Like, I mean, it was just great.
Well, thank you. But I got to say, Jen made that easy. What a fantastic guest. What a good person.
Yep.
I knew it's funny because you start to think, well, where am I going to go with these things? What am I going to do? And I knew when I came up with the mixtape format, and the next question was, okay, where do I go for guests? She was the first one in my head.
Nice.
And now, again, through this podcasting medium, if it wasn't for it, I would never have met Jen. I wouldn't know her at all.
Mm-hmm.
And just because we've interacted, through different shows and then having her as a guest on our liner notes, I've met this great person with this wonderfully eclectic music taste, and got to have her on my show, and it was her answers and her taste that really made that show. She was great.
Yeah, it was a great interview. How does your wife feel about the whole time you're spending doing the podcasting?
She's okay with it, because I don't take away from any family time. And you won't have me out here recording when I should be at a dance recital,
mm-hmm.
or someone needs to go to school. It never crossed that line.
Yeah.
This is something I only do on my free time. So, right now she's in there. She's a blogger. So, she's in the house right now working on her blog,
yeah.
and probably catching up on a couple TV shows. So there's, and we do a podcast together. So she kind of knows what it's all about too.
Yeah.
So, and that's another great reason why I'm glad she got involved with me to do a show is, I'm not just taking up all my free time and all my time away from her doing just this. It's something we do together. So now we can also talk about it. So when we're done here, I'll go inside. We'll probably chat about this conversation.
Yeah.
We might even talk about technical details of the setup and, how was the sound quality, all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
I think because she's involved in it, and again, I'm not crossing that line of taking away, other time that we have, she's pretty good with it.
That's great. I know we kind of touched on it before, but how much time do you spend a week doing this? Like, is it hours or?
It can be hours. So let's, like, at a typical week, if I'm recording our liner notes as well, I'll do an hour liner notes recording either Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and that is always at least a 2.5 hour conversation that gets cut down to 2 or less.
Mm-hmm.
The editing process, because we're a music show, adds a lot of time. So, I have to cut tracks, edit them in, put them in, blah, 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 and then cut through. So I bet you in a 2-hour episode, I probably spend 5 to 6 hours in the edit process.
Wow.
Then it's usually Friday night. Sometimes it's Saturday night. Kristen and I will sit down for about an hour and a half, 2 hours, record. And then I spend about the same amount of time editing that episode. So I'm working on it, doing stuff every night. And then also with our liner notes, with the format change, I've started doing solo episodes like the Chris Cornell one.
Yep.
So now there's also research that needs to be done. And then I actually have to write a script. And then even in the show itself, because, again, like I said, I'm running out of stories to tell,
Mm-hmm.
I'm starting to get a little more research heavy in the albums that I bring. So that takes time.
Yeah.
I spend a lot of time, Chad, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
So that's my next question. Where are you finding all this time? Like, are you doing it, at night when the kids are all gone to bed and you're staying out up, another couple hours past when you really should be getting some shut eye, or when are you squeezing it in?
I have this 2-hour window most nights. So kids are in bed between 7 and 8, and then I'm usually done, working, because it's my work day isn't 9 to 5 and then it's over. Then anything that's lingering from the day still has to be taken care of.
Right.
And there's still office and paperwork and that kind of stuff.
Yep.
Dinner to be fit in there. So yeah, no, most of the time is fit in that 8 to 10 o'clock time.
Yeah.
That's where I pull it out from.
Cool. That's where I am as well. It's kind of in the evenings, and once everything is taken care of, then I can, get at it. Tuesday night is kind of the known night as this is my night, and we do the family stuff every other night.
Exactly.
Have you thought maybe it's starting to become a little bit too much, or have you got the eye for recognizing that maybe I'm putting too many shows out, or I'm doing too much? Has it ever come to that point yet, or do you think you still got a lot more in you?
I think I've had that point. And again, you can see in the inconsistency of some of the show releases. Like, none of the shows we have been out on, just as an example, they're not out every Monday morning, every week without fail.
Yeah.
You will see that they'll come out 10 days apart sometimes, or maybe they'll come out 5 days apart, or maybe there'll be a couple weeks in between. And all that is dictated by the time that I have in order to do these things.
Right.
I have yet to let this cross over into that other necessary time.
Yeah. And that's key, right? Like if
it is. And I go back to your question about does your wife have a problem with it? It's when it crosses that line, I think, is when she or anybody else, including myself, would have that issue with it. It's for fun at the end of the day.
Yeah, exactly. And when it's not fun, or does she have like the wherewithal to say, you know what, Chris, like you're putting a little bit too much. Let's pull it back a little bit.
I've had that come my way, more so in the beginning when I think when I was first starting out and we were hammering out episodes every single week in that first year, there was a couple moments where she'd say, "Hey, did you do this?" Or be like, "Oh, I forgot I was working on the podcast," something like that.
Yeah. Friendly reminder.
Yeah. Just, you need to take care of this stuff first. And yes, you're right.
Awesome. Let's forge ahead and get into Fave 5.
All right.
Who's your favorite band right now and why?
Oh, come on. That's like picking kids. No, I don't have a favorite band, and that I could tell you one now and then ask me in 10 minutes and I'll tell you a different answer.
Absolutely.
I will say this though. And I this is what I love about the modern age of music, as much as I could sit here and bemoan the state of music today. Old man yells at cloud.
Yeah, I know that.
But what I love about now is the availability of music. So it used to be back in the day that you went into a music store, and if you heard about a band or you read about a band or your friend told you about a band or an artist, whatever, you go and take a chance on their album, right? You'd walk in and you'd be like, I can afford to buy 3 albums today, and these are the ones I'm getting.
Yeah.
And then you're kind of stuck with them. But today, if you want to check something out, you can.
Yep.
I mean, it's available anywhere and everywhere. So the great thing is when you do find a band or artist and you like it, you now get to explore everything they've done. And not only do you get to explore all their music, you can Wikipedia, song fact, etc., look up everything about them. And within 2 days, you now have heard and read everything that they were ever about.
Yeah.
Stuff that would take you, years of being a fan to accumulate in the old days.
Oh, absolutely. I know. I know exactly what you're talking about, because most of the times with the genre that I'm into, like the heavier side of metal and whatnot, you almost had to buy an album by whatever the cover looked like. And then if you wanted to hear more, or if you wanted to delve deep into it, it was either going back to mixtapes, but it was either mixtapes or bootleg tapes that you had to try to find some off your buddy to find something new. No, yeah, exactly. Would you think, do you think that Spotify is helping in a way as well, or do you think it's crutching music right now?
I love Spotify. Spotify is my lifeline. Spotify makes our liner notes work.
Yeah, there you go.
So I will say nothing negative about Spotify. But to your band question, I'm going to answer it with, in line with what I was saying about being able to discover bands, is I was unaware of the Black Keys as an example, and it was back a few years ago when one of our employees brought the Black Keys with him and was listening to it on his phone, and I said, "What is that?" And he told me about it, and within minutes, when I got home, I was knee deep in their entire catalog, and I love that band, and it was great to get to explore them. So that's probably one of the more recent ones. I've actually, and here's a bit of a spoiler alert, I've gotten in touch with the singer of one of my old bands, a guy that we used to be roommates and good friends, but we just, the move and stuff, we'd lost touch, and we pretty much not talked in about a decade.
Yeah.
And he's going to be a guest on one of the next mixtape editions. And nice. I think that's going to be a laugh for us to sit and tell old band stories. But he told me that he's still playing music today to get into Muse. So I've been now just recently diving into Muse's catalog.
Yeah, they're not bad. They're a little different. I've kind of, how many albums have I got? I think I got 2 of their albums. Yeah, I like them. Black Keys, I've got a very similar story as well. One of the bandmates that I was hanging with, he was like heavy into them, and I saw the poster on the wall. I was like, okay, Black Keys, what's that all about? And he showed me one of the songs. I think it was off Brothers album, and then I was like instantly hooked, because if you remember back when the Black Keys were coming out, pretty much rock was dead on the radio.
Oh yeah,
like a good rock and roll band. And I think, like for me anyway, I don't know, a lot of people just said them in the same way, but they kind of saved rock and roll on radio, because I didn't even know what was being played at the time. It was not very good, that's for sure.
I'm with you.
Yeah. Moving on. Do you have a favorite movie right now?
I don't watch movies. So I haven't for a long time, and I don't have anything against movies. Movies are great. I used to watch movies all the time. I used to work in a record store where half the department was movies. There's a good 20-year block of my life where I've probably seen everything that ever came out.
Wow. But
in having kids and a family life and a business and finding a hobby, that's the thing that I'm sacrificing.
Yeah.
I don't watch TV. I don't watch movies because I don't have those 2 hours or whatever set aside anymore to do that.
Yeah.
So they're far, I mean, to say I've seen none, not true, but they're far and few between.
Yeah, or they're animated children's movies.
You got it. I have seen every Pixar, Disney, DreamWorks. Yeah. Yep.
I feel you. I know that one.
The only live action or close to adult films that I've seen in the last few years is my oldest is really into Star Wars, so I have seen all the new Star Wars films.
Cool.
I go by myself if I had to.
Yeah. I've been thinking about that lately. It's like, I really want to see that movie, but I can't bring the kids to it. It's probably not in their wheelhouse, or they're not old enough to watch it. So I'm starting to think I'm going to go to Costco and pick up a ticket packet myself and sneak off one of these nights and watch a movie I really want to watch.
Well, as a family man, I'm starting to think, though, that I might really enjoy those 2 hours by myself.
Exactly.
It might be a nice experience.
Yeah. Well, the little snippet picture from How's Your Week kind of sums it up, right? You got the after school activities and the school and this and that. It grates on you for a while.
It's a lot. It's good, and I'm happy to do all of it. But yeah, everybody needs a break.
Yeah, for sure. Do you have a favorite comic book or a book you're reading, or a comic book hero, or anything you're reading right now?
I am reading this book right now, and if you listen to the How's Your Week Honey podcast, you realize that I've been reading it for some time. But I'm reading this really great book called Counting by Sevens.
Yep.
I wish I could tell you who it was by. But I've been reading this book, and it's a story about a gifted girl who loses her parents. And one of the reasons why I'm reading it is we actually bought it for my oldest, who was put into a gifted class herself. And so being diligent parents, we're trying to make ourselves aware and as educated as we can as to what that means and what we can do, and understanding her and, all those good things. And so it's a fascinating book just in and of itself. But there are passages in there and thought processes that get explained, and you read them, and then I look at my daughter and I'm like, okay. So
all makes sense.
But it's been a great book. Other than that, again, our mutual friend Agent Palmer, another spoiler alert, we're looking at doing a deep dive episode into Aerosmith, and he very, very kindly bought and mailed me Walk This Way, the Aerosmith story.
Wow.
So that's next in the queue.
Nice. Yeah, he's heavy into Aerosmith, that's for sure.
Yeah, big fan.
This one probably is going to have a short answer as well, but a TV show. Do you have a favorite TV show?
Game of Thrones.
Aye.
We are watching Game of Thrones. See, I like because we have HBO on our satellite, I can go onto the HBO website and watch stuff right off. I can stream it from there.
Yeah.
And we'd been recommended that show for so long that I said, you know what? For our time together, that's come to 11 o'clock or whatever, just before bed, we do watch a handful of shows, and that's probably my favorite. Yeah. So, and we're currently ending season 5, so we're catching up.
So did you have the same problem as I did with the very first episode? You couldn't get through it. I had to watch it, I think, 3 times before I made myself sit down and go, okay, I need to watch this, because I couldn't get it, what everybody was getting on about. I think it was the slowness of it at the beginning or something. I don't know.
That's exactly what happened to us. Kristen and I started it when it first came out because everyone was raving about the show.
Yeah.
And we got 2.5 episodes in, and Kristen was pregnant at the time, and there was some other things going on in our life. And to maintain the focus, to follow the characters and who was who and what, I'm just like, there's just too much going on, and we put it down.
Yeah. And
then, upon years went by, and then upon insistence of others, so we tried it again, and it was that second time it just clicked.
Yeah. Yeah, I did the same thing. I had to put it down for a while, and then went, oh, okay, now I get it. But yeah, there is a lot to maintain. Like I blame, I shouldn't say I blame, but I kind of blame the downtime in between that I'm, like this season when it came out, I was totally lost on I knew who they were, but like the previous years, I was like, oh, I don't remember anything anymore. I don't get it. And it's going to be worse this time because it's going to be 2019, I think they're talking about.
I heard, that I saw a countdown clock. It's like 525 days till season 8 starts.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. I could go on about that one.
And I'm going to say, and I don't know why I'm volunteering this, because I think much of your listening audience is going to start to throw things at me, but I've also gotten away from television and movies because you can't put your arm out without touching a superhero show or movie. Now, don't get me wrong. When Batman came out with Michael Keaton and all that back in the day, I loved that shit. I was all for it. I can't believe how prevalent and prominent that stuff is in the culture now. And no any one series or movie do I think is bad. I'm not, crapping on the genre. I've just had enough.
It's a big problem, and I think it's an easy target, right? So they can pick up a book. They don't have to write a storyboard, right? They can just go, well, here's my shots right here. So you just hand the book to your production crew, and they go out and they look for similar, sites to do the shoots, and away they go, right? It's so easy, and I think that's the problem. And yeah, I'm burned out of it right now as well. Like anytime a new superhero quote unquote thing comes out right now, I don't even touch it until I hear somebody absolutely recommend it, and usually it's from Wicked Theory or something like that. But yeah, I don't even touch it because it's like, oh my god, another one. Like, what was this? Supergirl.
Right. Yeah.
Haven't even watched an episode. Couldn't care less.
No. There's a lot of it, and good on you if that's what you're into. And I mean, hell, I watch sports, and I've been watching the same teams for years and years, and most of them lose all the time, and I still sit there in front of the TV and watch them. So it's probably really not much different. You're into what you're into. That's just something for me that's gotten me away from it.
Yep. No, exactly. To each their own, right? It's just not my bag anymore. I've just been oversaturated with superheroes. I mean, I don't know where they're going to go next. Like, they're just dragging up every odd character from, the low shelf at the comic store.
And the superhero thing, even by nature, I mean, how many ways can you tell the story? There's always, you need the origin story. Why did Joe become the Caped Crusader, or whatever the case is, and what motivated them to do this, or what radioactive weird thing happened to give you those powers, and then who's your nemesis that you're going after that's destroying the city. And I mean, it's the same hero with a different color cape.
Well, that's what happened with me with Spider-Man. Like, so the last Spider-Man that I watched was way back, Spider-Man #2 with Tobey Maguire, right?
Yep.
That was the last one I watched. I could not believe that they'd come out with a new Spider-Man and do the origin again and rehash the whole thing again. The only one that I just watched Homecoming, and because I heard that they did it in a different way, and I watched it and I actually enjoyed it from a standpoint of that, because it was totally different, right? But that point exactly, it's like, how many times are you going to rehash this origin story, and what happened to his family? And it's like, couldn't be bothered.
I don't care.
Yeah, exactly. Enough. The last one in the Fave 5 is food, and don't say pizza.
Damn it. Okay. I make a really, really mean beef Wellington.
Nice.
So that's my favorite right there. The beef tenderloin, mushrooms wrapped in pastry.
Oh. No. That now I'm gonna have to put that on my list. Now I want that.
But otherwise, it would be pizza. I could eat pizza every goddamn day.
I know, and that's why I got. You know what? I may take this one out of there because
it's the same answer every time.
Exactly, it's the same answer, and I can't deny it. It's my favorite as well. So what are you gonna do?
Nice, but I love food. I love to eat.
Yeah.
As this big hump in my midsection would tell you.
You ever go out for any exotics? Like, anything get a hankering for, like Thai food or anything like that?
It's funny. Chris and I were just talking about this on our last episode. And as much as we are foodies in that we love to go out to eat and we avoid franchises and, we love a good chef prepared meal, we kind of order the same things wherever we go. It's sort of a narrow window. We're not too exotic. Yeah, Thai food. Yeah, I can do Thai food. Yeah. But if it was squid or octopus or black ink pasta, I'm probably not going there.
It's like stay a little safe, nothing crazy.
That's right. But I do appreciate the flavors of it wasn't put together on a line.
Yeah.
Someone actually chefed that stuff up, and yeah.
Yeah, it's we're very similar as well. If we're gonna go out for something, I'm not going to X fast food place.
Yeah, I think our example was the keg. I mean, the keg's fine, but if I want a steak, I don't need a 16-year-old kid who's been stuck on grill all night making my steak. You know what I mean?
No, exactly. There's a difference between a keg or Earl's.
Yes.
Earl's is, for anybody out there that doesn't know, is a Western Canada kind of, should we say a higher end of the keg?
Yeah. It's a higher end franchise.
Yeah.
but it's a franchise. And I think they've had the same menu for the last 25 years.
They're mixing it up a bit. We were there actually on the weekend.
Okay.
Yeah, they're mixing it up. It's Le Burger Week. I don't know if you've had it out there.
What's for?
I don't know. I thought it was actually just a Winnipeg thing until I saw it on the news this morning. They said, no, it's a nationwide. It's Canadian Le Burger Week. I don't know why French had to be brought into it, but yeah.
I'm gonna say that's weird because all the English speaking Canadians are like, well, what makes that Canadian? And all the French speaking Canadians are like, you can't just stick le in front of something.
Exactly. It doesn't work.
You're just pissing off the whole country equally.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so anyway, everybody is doing a burger here. So even like a pizza shop is doing a burger. So anyway, Earl's had a burger on, so we went and had it. It was actually pretty good. But yeah, it was the first time I was in Earl's for a while, and yeah, I noticed that they've changed it up. So yeah.
Right on.
That's fun. Let's get into the mixtape. And you brought forth 3 songs that I thought were interesting. So let's get into a talk about the first one, which is Lenny Kravitz and Always on the Run. What brought that to the table?
Okay, so I think I had messaged you and I had said, I've got my songs, but they're theme-based because doing music on a theme is kind of my thing.
Yep, exactly. So I'm very interested in seeing this theme because the 3 songs that you gave me were kind of interesting. So let's hear it.
So what I based my songs on is I tried to pick you not just 3 songs that I liked, because I thought that would be just to filter through that much music would be next to impossible. So the show is What's Your Work? So I wanted to find songs that I could associate with a story from where I worked at some point in time. So Lenny Kravitz, Always on the Run, is a story from one of my very first jobs. And I used to be a dishwasher in a private club in Winnipeg, the Wildwood Club. I think it's still there.
Wildwood? Yes, it is.
Yeah, okay. So that was one of my very first jobs, and I was a dish pig. And I had this big old ghetto blaster that I had up on the top of the dishwasher, and I loved that job for, a 15-year-old kid just sitting there listening to the radio all night, jamming out to my songs. Anyways, there was a couple of servers that worked at the club that were in a band together. And this was back in the day when the radio was the place to get your new music.
Yep.
And the announcer kept saying that the new Lenny Kravitz song was going to drop at 8:00 or whatever it was. And he kept, promoting it over and over again.
Yeah.
And the guys in this band said, hey, when that song comes out, grab us because we want to hear it. Okay, no problem. So anyways, the song's about to come on. I get these 2 guys. And within 30 seconds of that opening riff, which I think Slash plays on, if I'm not mistaken, and there was me, these 2 guys, this female busser, and our manager all inside this little kitchen area, air guitar on mops and brooms and dancing up on the make table for the next 2 minutes, just having a riot listening to this song. And it's one of my very earliest work memories associated with music, and I will never forget it. And I can't hear Lenny Kravitz, Always on the Run, without thinking of that air guitar jam session.
Just rocking out in the dishes.
Yep, you bet.
Nice. The second one you brought was Evil and a Heathen by Franz Ferdinand.
So that goes back to my training in air traffic control. And again, such a difficult process. I used to use music, as a lot of people do, I'm sure, to sort of get me going and pump me up. And so it was a good half hour or so drive from where I was living to get there in the morning. And this album had come out in about the year that I was training. And my sister and her boyfriend at the time had bought me that Franz Ferdinand album. And I used to use that song as one of my last songs before I went in for the day. And it's just a fast-paced, very confident, rock, cocky song, and it's only 2 minutes long. And it was just perfect to build me up and get me going and get me into the building. So that's where that comes from.
Fast and tight, get you going.
Yep.
Nice. Last one is interesting. I Got Mine by the Black Keys.
Well, as I said, the Black Keys are probably one of my most recent favorite bands. And so, I thought they'd make a good choice. But with the job that I'm doing now, in the early days, and we still do now, I don't know why I said early days, but the story comes from the early days of being out here. But we use lifts a lot for our taller buildings and that we're working on.
Yep.
And I'm not that great with heights, but I have found that once you get up into those heights over time, you start to get used to it. And there was this one day where I was up in this big 45-foot knuckle boom. I'm like 3.5 stories in the air. We had safety harnessed in there and everything.
Yeah.
And I had just downloaded the entire Black Keys discography to my phone.
Nice.
And this song had come on, and I guess it had sort of taken over me. And there I am, that high up in the air. And if you've ever been in a lift, they have a little bounce to them.
Yes, they do.
They're safe, but they move.
Yep.
And I was dancing, working away up in this lift, and the whole arm is just bounding up and down and back and forth. But at this point, I'm just so comfortable. And I can remember this song ending and looking down, and like the entire staff all down on the ground looking up at me like I was fucking nuts.
You're going to bounce out.
But I didn't care. It was great. It was such a good song.
Nice. That's an awesome way to end it for sure.
Awesome.
Last one is a new section that I brought in the last couple episodes. Is called out. So what I'm looking for is who would you like to hear on the next guest on the show and why?
I would love to hear, and I hear you may be good at getting people out of retirement, shall we say?
It seems that way.
I would love, because I haven't heard him in so long, if you could find my cousin, the one and only Diamond Dave, and get him on the show. I'm sure there's not just me who would like that.
Yes, there has been a few people contacting me wondering the same thing, so I'm going to try my best. We'll see what's going to happen.
I may be able to help you, so we'll talk after.
All right. Awesome. Well, Chris, this was fantastic. I had a great time. I know that it's been a little bit of a challenge trying to get this up, but this was fantastic. I appreciate every minute of it, and I thank you again for having me on your show, I should say, almost a year ago now. And I wish you great luck with your podcast because they are fantastic, and I listen every week or whenever they come out. And I guess if you want to plug yourself right now for all your emails and Twitter handles and all that, you go for it right now.
Well, first of all, before I get into that, thank you for letting me come on and ruin your show. That's mighty kind of you.
Not at all ruined.
No, this is great. I love talking to people. I really enjoyed talking to you tonight. I love your show. It's a very unique format in getting to know people. So kudos to you. And I have to get you to return the favor in kind. And even if it takes some time, I would love to have you back on for a mixtape episode.
Absolutely.
And I would also still like to try and make that, how do I put it? I won't ruin who you were going to bring, but I was going to try and convince you of the value of hip hop. And I'd still like to make that episode happen. So whether it takes 6 months or a year, we'll work it out. But that's just a conversation I'd love to have and I'd love to share. So again, thank you very much. This was a blast.
No, I know I'm going to do the Canadian thing, but no, thank you, sir.
And if anybody wants to send their hate mail at me, you can. The best way to find me is on Twitter. I am at Chris Maier BC. And if you want to check out any of our shows, and I would love it if you did, I have my music podcast. It used to be just album based, but now there's all sorts of things that you can find there, different formats. But if you're just a music geek and you love music and you love music history and music stories, come listen to our liner notes. And I also do a podcast with my ever beautiful wife, who is much more interesting and funnier than I am, Kristen, at How Is Your Week, Honey?
Okay, dude.
I better get out of here. You better get out of here.
Yeah, it's 11:30 here. So, and first day of school tomorrow.
Yes, it is.
So
I wish I was going back to school.
I know. That's why I tell my youngest. She's like, "Oh, I want to go back." Well, yeah. Wait till you got to work, like all the time. You'd be like, "Yeah."
I mean, don't you ever get that feeling? September rolls around, and you're like, "Oh, I feel like I should be going to school right now."
Yeah, I wish.
Okay, dude.
Yeah. Later.
Good night.
Bye.